crafting session, and start off with a little bit of a recap. Camera angle 3.0 now, a little bit of a better look down rather than a cross view. So here's what I've been working on, the ship, and giving it a base that looks like it's sailing through water. So I put the paste on at the end of the last session, and this is fully dried through here, and as you can see, that's the lower deck of the ship, so it fits in to the gap underneath, and we can make it an extra playable surface, so you can have your people on top, and then when you need to go below deck, pop that off, and you've got the below deck little area. So my plan for tonight is I've got hopefully enough of the Mod Podge with black paint. This has lasted a long time, so hopefully that's still good. So I'll get some of that over these waves to give it a bit of protection. And the other thing I started working on was the back of this ship, where I thought of sort of the little captain's deck that sits further out, and I had an idea to cut a little template and try and fill that with something. So what I'd found is a little pizza tray, and the texture on the bottom of this is sort of like a corrugated mesh. So what I've done is I sort of cut that out, cut it into strips, and that sort of looks like the corrugated glass that would be across the back of the captain's quarters, and hopefully it'll give it a bit of texture when I come to painting this thing, or maybe a bit of transparency to light up if I need to. Might not go that far, but we'll see. I thought of another idea just to bulk that out a little bit, is with that little bit of foam, using that template, cutting that out so that I could carve it into something that sits out, because building it up with the wooden sticks that I had was still quite flat, so I decided I might give it a shot with something a bit bulkier, which should give me a bit of a nicer, easier build. A couple of things I also found was a steering wheel for the ship. Just add a little bit of added detail to it. I think these are from a Artesania Latina. It's like model ship parts that I found cheap one time, and it's a anchor as well that I might use later on, add them to the build to make it a little bit more exciting. So what we'll do is I'll leave this for now. I will try and get that painted in the second half of the stream, but what I wanted to try and do is get this little template cut out so I can just make that back of the ship a little bit more exciting than just flat, and maybe give it a bit more detail. So just a little bit of foam. So I can Hey Dave, quick hey is streaming. Have a good time. Thank you, Dave. I will have a good time. Have a good time yourself with your stream. You do some streaming of some games on Game Zombies. And tonight is not my night for doing Game Zombies streaming. I join them on other nights. So, what I want to do is have a bit of a play cutting this out, so I can try and build up some texture to the back of the ship. And I reckon I could get a couple of different ones out of this size, so that I can just decide what type of ship this is going to be, or how much detail I need to put into the background. So we'll cut this out and go from there. So if you're just joining me, I've started this channel to craft, full stop really. All the ideas stuck in my head, not coming out, so try and get them out while other people are watching. So I don't have any, some crafting streamers have foam cutters and hot knives. I haven't found something yet, but I'm looking. But this is sort of more of like this isn't the foam that they use, this isn't XPS or anything, it's just some packing foam I found. But it's quite easy to carve, and I'm not fussed about the bubbly texture, because I should be able to cover it in probably the same sort of modelling paste I made the waves out of if I need to shave it off a little bit. Just put that to the side. So essentially what my plan is, I'll cut this down obviously, but a little extra boat deck out the back. Like you see on sailing ships, the captain's quarters sitting out the back, or the crew what do you call it? Map room and the officers area of the ship, just to make this a little bit more exciting out the back. Probably need to sort of, rather than have it flat that way, carve it in a little bit. So I want to take that up that way, so it sits in a bit better. Going to sit out the back there a little bit, just to give it an extra sort of bit of detail. And I reckon a little bit of extra. So I've got this bit as well, but I was thinking making a couple just to play around with the shapes. same to this one. Cut that down like that. Just got to figure out what I want that back to look like. And what I'm thinking is windowed sort of back that will sit out, and I've got some wooden, probably can't do probably could try and go around the corners with them, we'll see. Oh, I know, I could go that way just to build it out a little bit. Yeah, that'll work. So up that way there, that's the window. And then these around like that to give it that wooden look. And then planks sort of across that way as well. So let's just carve this down a little bit more. See how we go. So I sort of want to get this back bit done so that it's not holding up the rest of the ship, and I'll get some Mod Podge with black paint in it in there to seal it up. So that's sitting out there like that, just to give it a bit more pattern. Give it a bit more detail. These bits can go to the side. Then what I want to do something, can I go around? It's probably going a little bit tricky. Let's see. I don't know where I got this packing stuff from. Something is protecting some equipment from something. If I make that a little bit. So I'm just trying to build it up to give it a bit more detail on the back. So then I want that. sitting a little bit too far out. So I reckon I'll stick to just the one and stick to the window. So so glue this. I think it'll start coming together shortly and you'll see where my head is going. So we'll get a little bit of glue. Is like the window. Now, I'm not fussed that it's white in the background, it's more just the texture I want, that sort of corrugated texture, and then the wood paneling essentially is going to go across top. And this will make it look a little bit more fancy at the back of that ship. And you're back! Good on you, Dave. How many? We've got a couple of viewers. So what we want to do is get that on there. And what I've learnt from my last session is have a few things ready while things are gluing, because glue takes time to set, I have learnt, and that interrupts a good stream. And the last thing we want to do is interrupt a good stream. So let's see how we go. So we want that along this bottom edge. So this is the sort of like the wooden frame, as it were, of the windows. And what I'm going to do is, once that does dry, I'll just flip it over and cut that shape out of it. So what I need to do now, while that is going, is pretty much make a bunch of little sticks that go that way. glue them on. And we'll get like the outer bit. So I'm actually going to do 2 of these just to see which one I like the most. Stick it on. So this one I was thinking maybe thinning it out a little bit. I tried it on that, but that sits out a bit too far. So if we take that, so we're going to go quite a sharp angle that way. Just to give it something a bit different. Make that look pretty good as well. Bit of wood on the edges. So we've got 2 going. So we've got that one and that one. And you can see that's sort of like a textured glass look. And then what I'll do soon is go round and glue around there and then cut them off. So I just need a bunch that are that long. And let's go. Right, so how long was that? Oh, look at that. About 3 centimeters. So before I go cutting too much, flicking bits around, safety glasses, always good. And then see about cutting these. No. Wonder if this has got. No, this only has. This is good for trimming the little circular ends off. See these, what are these, hot dog sticks? This is good for nipping the little ends off, but because it's not got such a wide gap there, I can't use it to go deeper, because I suspect it'll crush and split. Yeah. See, so that splits that way, which is not what I want. So we don't want to use that tool, but we want to use three. just add a bit of detail to the ship. I think the back of the ship was missing a little bit of detail. So I'll do a little bit of these, and then I'll show you the undercoating of the waves that I've done on the base. So hopefully I can build on what I've learned so far, which is be a little bit more prepared with what I can build at one time, because glue takes time to set, but also I've got a bit more set up in this space of mine to be able to use a hot glue gun, which would make these things go even faster. Because at the moment I'm just working on getting the stream working, which I think I'm getting there. We had some working out on the first stream with some double up of sound, and then the second stream the view of my camera was needing a little bit of something extra, so I've got a little bit more mounting to mount the camera further towards me, so I'm not having to reach out to show you stuff, and also a little bit higher, so I've got more space in front of me for my hands, because that's what we see here, my hands. And I think I've got the view okay now, where I can see the space that I'm working in, and have enough space around me to have the tools and bits I'm crafting on ready and out of shot, so that I can quickly go from one to the next. So what I want to do, I think I want to take that down a little bit. Just straight down. Those wooden bits can come along and then around that edge. So this little bit here, I need to sort of cut that off. And that. And sometimes you sort of think after you've done something you should have done that first. Let's see if this tacky glue, yep, sweet. And what I reckon I can do, because I'm thinking this can be a little bit, yeah, there we go. So it's a little bit curved. So this tool works because I'm just taking the little bits off and not needing to have a large amount in that space there. So there we go. Put that back on. I'm not too fussed with little odd bits. I mean some ship builders obviously didn't have little odd bits, but my ships can. So go around there like that, and now I should be able to clip those away. So I reckon I'll get a couple of these on. And then we'll do the undercoating of this, and that'll give this a lot of strength with the Mod Podge, which is sort of like a PVA sealant, and that'll, like, there's a couple of cracks through here that have come up just because that was the thickest bit of the waves as the ship's sort of ploughing through the water. That's the thickest bit, so that had a couple of cracks in it, but they will just be filled in with the sealant that I'm putting on there. So we'll do a couple more of these bits of wood here, and then we will start undercoating, and you'll start to see what this ship sort of starts looking like when it's, well, the base anyway, is one colour. So I reckon, yeah, go like this. So this will give it its sort of wooden ship look. We'll go from there. So they're going to come around there, but what I'll need to do is let these ones set first. Around there like that. So that's the underside of that decking. And it doesn't matter if there's too much of a gap in between them, because that'll just add some nice detail. to set there. See how that works. Put that up there. Alright, so I've got a few more of them that I'll need to cut. For now, let's get on to some undercoating. See how well this works. It'll be fine. Okay. So, the base. So if you're just having a look at what's going on, the base is what I made with the lower deck of the ship that has the hollow in it, and it just sits on there like that. And what I'm going to do now, that what I was building just now is going to sit off the back. There's like a captain's quarters, just to give it a bit more detail to that flat back. But what we need to do is Mod Podge. So this stuff, PVA and some sealant, and I mixed this up quite a while ago, and it is still good. So it's just black paint and this PVA stuff, Mod Podge. And I didn't put too much black paint in there, so it's sort of like a grey, but this gives it a nice seal, but also like an undercoat for the painting as well. So we've got the waves that the ship's pushing through, and that's just a modelling paste, and I just slapped it on there. And oh gosh, was it the beginning of the last stream? I've forgotten the timeline now, but maybe even the first. No, definitely not. Second stream. And used just one of the sticks to push it around into the shape and make it look like waves, similar to one of my other projects that I've got the video on the channel for, which was my baby Kraken. I made the baby Kraken out of some air dry clay, and then I used this texture paste around that on the base to give it like a look of coming out of the water, and the guy standing sort of trying to tame it. So this stuff it's pretty much just goes on like PVA glue. You just push it around, and this is going to seal this texture paste, stop it from chipping, because it does make quite a solid little seal. I will go over that wood part, but I'll just get most of this. Well, actually I might leave the wood, we'll see. See what I do. How I feel when I get to the end of this bit. This is just a method that I've seen heaps of other crafters do. Someone on Black Magic Craft, Jeremy on Black Magic Craft, is where I first saw it, but ever since then people reference him, but also have their other little concoctions they've made, which some are just literally PVA and some black paint. They don't worry about the sealant part, just the sealing of glue. PVA glue seems to do it enough for them. It also gives it, for what I want for this water, is sort of like that glossy wet look. I mean, that's going to change when I put paint on it, but it gives it that sort of nice watery look. The thing I had to just be mindful of is not to get too much of the paintbrush strokes in there, because they'll just set and dry, so you sort of get this on as wet as possible. Not too much, but so it sort of flattens itself out, and it tends to need a couple of coats. So I'll show you what I'm doing here, but I won't dull you with a second coat, I don't think. And what I'll do is, once this is dry, you turn it over, and I tend to do the bottom as well, just because I like the whole thing sealed. So I'll go along the edges. Some people I've seen don't necessarily worry about the bottom of their crafts, but from the get-go I've sort of made it just something to, for me it's just something a bit tidier. I mean that doesn't really need anything, but already it's got some paint strokes over it. But the coat of Mod Podge on the bottom just adds that extra layer of strength to it as well, and just keeps it uniform across what I'm building. So I did that for my other crafts that I've got on my channel. I've got paint across the bottom of the Mod Podge just to keep it all sealed. And these edges need sealing anyway, because that's just the rough foam. So this board it's sitting on is like a foam core with the paper on either side, but I've found that you can't really get the paper off on these that easily. So I didn't bother. So that is where the Mod Podge comes in as well. Just keeps that from getting damaged over time. Just a little bit there. So once it starts drying, you can sort of see where you've sort of missed. Just get in those little wave gaps. And I don't know if I know you can So once it starts drying, this brush I'm using is pretty hard plastic. It's just a cheap brush to get this stuff on. It starts leaving like little stroke marks through it. So you just sort of go use them as waves as well, or you need to really load it up and get it so it's sort of wet enough so that it falls down again and fills those little gaps. And I think, am I going to go across that? I think I am. Whether it's a good idea or not, not sure, but here we go. So I want to try and keep it as light as possible, and with that grain, because I don't want to lose that sort of wood grain that the wood has, obviously. But if I get a little bit of a coat of this, I should be able to seal it, but also keep the texture I wanted from the putting that on. Otherwise, what's the point? Sort of want enough to get it sealed. And sort of go with the direction I want. So it's sort of, even if it's got the stroke marks from the brush, I mean that can add the grain to it as well, essentially. And, so I'm not just going to leave this as grey. This is just an undercoat and a sealant. So that's going to seal that up. And if I keep these brush strokes in the same direction, you can't, oh no, you sort of can see it on the stream. It's sort of the strokes from the brush have sort of left lines on as well, but it's also looks like, because it's wet that wood, it's sort of puffed up a little bit as well. So if that dries with a little bit of a grain look, that should look like the wood as well. And you can see so I've, what do you call it, staggered the planks, so there's those quite defined breaks. So when I paint it, so a wooden colour, and then you maybe a wash. The wash is like the liquid, darker liquid that would fill in those little gaps, and it's dark, generally darker than your, like the wood colour, so then it makes those lines pop out. And then I don't know if I could probably do the lightest of dry brush of a lighter woodish colour across, just to catch the edges, to make it look as close to wood as I can make it. So that is the undercoating of the base. So the ship will sit on there. The texture paste I've used and shaped has dried and made that sort of wave as the ship is sailing through it. around the ship, and the Mod Podge that I've just put on with the black paint is going to seal and protect that from chipping and give me an undercoat to paint. So if I put that there for a second, this is the similar sort of colour scheme I'm going to do. This is the little baby kraken that I did, air dry clay on a similar little base. See, I've done the underside, I just made it sort of patterned it a little bit just so it's protected, and I've got the blue, and then I've got the waves, and then I used some white sand as like the bubbly waves. So I'm going to sort of emulate this onto this, because that is the sort of same pattern of waves I want around my ship. So the ship's going to be breaking the water at the front, and then at the back it's going to be bubbly as it's drawing through the back of the ship. So this is the example that I'll sort of follow for that. And I haven't painted wood before. No, wait. One of my other, the guardhouse has a bit of wood on it, so I'll try and emulate that as well. But I think that was just cardboard, not wooden sticks. So this texture might be a lot nicer than the cardboard gatehouse one I did. So hopefully this will turn out a little bit more wood looking. I'm happy with the other one, but this is the next step, having wood in there. And this little bit, which is going to need some manipulation and help, is going to be sitting off the back of the boat. It'll all become clearer once I've got this set up. So I think we're going to focus on, I'll double coat this once this is dried, do another coat. Also the underside, I'm going to just do a little bit of a swirl pattern on it so that it's got something protecting it, and figure out the back of the ship for this, and then just sort of have a think whether I need to sand or give this a little bit of undercoat as well. It doesn't really need to be sealed, but it might need something for some paint to adhere to. The top's not too bad, it's textured, and because I will need to paint it with the back being altered, so I think it'll probably be best to undercoat that with something. And that, what I was saying before, the brush strokes, the glue Mod Podge stuff I'm putting on, if I use the brush with brush strokes, it should add a bit more texture to the outside of the ship. And I reckon just to make it look a bit nicer, I'll just do the same Mod Podge on the inside just to give it a finished look, so that you turn it upside down, you're not just seeing what it is now. So it's sort of angles that I'm not missing are painted, and I'm going to work out a little wheel on the back and have a think going forward if I'm adding anything. I don't think I need to add anything to the top. I mean, I could maybe a little bit of a bulkier outside, and maybe find something, one of those, I'll need to look up what they're called, the carved figures out the front of the ships. So figure out if I want maybe like a lion's head or something stuck on there to make the front look more unique. I'll have a think about that. See if I've got any little model pieces around that might fit into that. And I wanted to make a magnet mast, so that the magnet can, the mast can pop off for storage, but also, like, I don't know, you come and roll a nat 20 and your cannonball hits the mast and it falls over, so you can pop it off and crash land it into something. So I think we're coming to an end of the stream, but we've come a long way. This has come the next few steps. I can see what the next steps are. So there's a few bits to do on the back and the window. We'll see how that evolves. And once this is dried, I will undercoat it again off stream, so we don't need to see me undercoating again, but I just wanted to do it at least once so that you can see. I mean, that was pretty simple, and it is part of the process to help protect all the bits you've added to it. So I mean, this, I'm not adding any more to this. Essentially I could make little bits and pieces you could sit on here. I think you call it scatter terrain, like little barrels or a chest, or like I've got the anchor, I could throw the anchor off the side or something like that. But yeah, that is me for tonight. So thank you very much for joining me, and I will book in another stream. Tuesdays seem to be the day I can, so we will see you hopefully the next Tuesday I stream. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.